My name is Samantha Mirabal. I'm with Melco's application team, and today is our Design Shop talk. This is where we get together every week or hopefully every week, to see what questions you have, to get them answered, get you more familiar with Design Shop, whatever you want to talk about. We'll see if we can get you answers. If we don't know them, or if it's a topic too big for here, we'll take a note to add them to our Facebook Lives that we try to do on a regular basis. So with that said, feel free to type in your comments, your questions. Let's see if I can see them. All right, if someone can hear me, type in so I know I'm seeing the comments. But otherwise, I will just assume you can and keep going. All right, Melco, hello. I don't know who's there. All right, so I did get a few questions ahead of time that I went ahead and put here just so that I have something to talk to rather than staring at the screen with everyone looking at me. So these are the ones I just collected, and we'll kind of pop through those, and if you think of anything, type them in. Hey. All right, so there's a question. I have I have Pro Plus. When I import an AO file, it comes in just black, no design image. I've tried several AO files, same results. What can I do to fix this? So you have Pro Plus, so oops. So that is one of the things I was going to say. I don't know. I've not had that issue. So I was sitting there playing with different files to see if I could duplicate it, and I haven't been able to, but I'll show you the main way I do them. When I've got DesignShop open, I'm also running Pro Plus here. What I will do is, rather than opening the vector straight in here, I tend to just open it in Illustrator, select what I want, and just do a Control-C and a Control-V, and it pastes it straight in. So that's kind of what I've taken to doing for the most part with Illustrator. But here, just to show you, if I go, do you know how to turn on auto manual? Oh, all right. Yeah, I'll talk about that in a minute. All right. So if I go and just grab that same file and open it, it pops in. So the reason I usually copy and paste it is because I like it to drop right in the center versus wherever I have it saved in Illustrator. It really doesn't matter. It seems to do the same thing. And here, copy and paste is an easy trick, but they're also saying save it to EPS version 8. They typed in as a good way to kind of bypass any issues with that. So I hope that helps a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and close this and see what else we can talk about today. So there's a question was typed in. Hey, do you know how to turn auto manual to do like an applique so the machine will actually stop, or if you're doing the puffy foam? So I think how I'm interpreting that, correct me if I'm wrong, is how do I set up the machine so that it will stop and we will get the machine stopped, I can go lay my fabric down or do whatever it is I want to do. So that is all done within OS. All right, let me go grab I don't have OS. My machines are being used in the other room, so I didn't have them hooked up to this computer. So let's see what I can do about that. So what you do on there is when you're going to set your colors, so let's go to here. Yeah, okay, so I did understand the question correctly. So let me pull up a screen so I can point. And it's basically in OS when you're setting the colors. And I know it's in here. All right. Colors. Setting color sequence. It's got to be here. All right. I'm just going to zoom in so we can actually see the screen. Maybe. All right. How do I scroll? Me and Explorer aren't getting along today. Sorry. Okay, so when you go to set up your colors, how you actually program in an applique stop, or when you're doing puff, it's most often done as a hold. But hopefully you're familiar with the screen, and this is what you would, when you go into there on the right-hand side, you double-click on your colors, and this will pop up. So right here, you've got your colors, and so color 1 is going to sew on needle 6, color 2 is going to sew on 10, and so forth. When you want to pause the machine, so let's say you want to sew color 1, and then you want to have it stop. Well, what you do is you'd program color 6, and then you'd hit this applique button. All right, so 6 applique, 10, 12, 15, or 16, that's what would be here. So what would happen, hi there, is when the machine would sew color 1 and then it would come to a complete stop, the hoop would come out from under the needle case and it would sit there and it would wait until you put your applique piece down, whatever it is you want to do to it. All right. When you hit the green start button again, the hoop will pull back under the needle case and then it will start sewing your next colors. So let's say you have multiple applique stops. You want to, trim it, do a placement line, other things. You would just, everywhere you want the machine to stop between the colors, you'd put the word applique. Now, when you're doing puff, I would suggest not using applique and using hold. So the only difference between applique and hold is when you put the hold on there, the machine stops, but instead of shoving the hoop out from under the needle case, it just sits there. So it just stops sewing and waits for you to go hit the green button again. So if I had color 1, hold, the word hold would be there after I click that. Then it would be 2 hold, 3 hold, whatever it would be. All right, so that you would have that. Now, in the same screen, which of course it's not up here because I actually don't know why. There's a settings by color button, and Travis asked a question of how can you set up turn off thread break and bobbin break for just one color. If you go by settings by color, enable that, and actually I can probably get you the screen so I'm not just waving my hands in the air. Settings by color. Let's see. There we go. All right. So on this, it's under Tools, settings by color. All right. So when you enable settings by color, what this will let you do is, one, you can set it by needle. So change the specific settings for one needle, or by using let's say you're running metallic threads and you want to slow the machine down, up your active feed, so you could do that. Well, you click on color 2, turn that on, click on 2, and then down here you would change whatever settings you want. You can apply that to the needle, so anytime it comes back to that needle, it will change the settings automatically. So you don't have to sit there and babysit the machine or change your settings as it's going. You can just hit it and go. All right, so hopefully that helps Travis. But you can see down here there's enable all thread detection, enable bobbin thread detection, so you can uncheck those. These only show up as options when you enable the settings by color. All right. All right, what else do we have? All right, so I don't see any new questions typed in, so I'm going to go back to my pre-list. All right. How can we eliminate pucker on performance polos? So we've done a video on that. So if you go to, oops, that's different. All right. So on the Melco service site, this is also linked already where that question was asked in the announcements for here. But there's a video up here on performance wear, and it shows kind of the main techniques. But predominantly, look at the digitizing, of course. Make sure you have appropriate underlays and things like that. But it's really coming down to stabilizing it, making sure you're not overstretching it, and you're stabilizing and hooping well so that it can't move around, right? So the technique I like the most is what's written here, and it's a lot of words, but what you're going to do is, I used to have it sitting right here. Oh, I still do. Is to use this no-show mesh. So let's see, maybe that, yeah. So this is just black no-show mesh, but that I use. So I'll take this stuff and use a little bit of 505, spray it, and I usually will either take 2 layers of this or 1 layer of this and 1 layer of a basic 3.1 ounce cutaway, and stick those together with like 505 adhesive. 505 is really nice. It doesn't gum up the needles. After you stick that, I then turn the shirt inside out, spritz the stabilizer, and with the shirt laying nice and smooth on the table, apply that stabilizer. So now it's stuck to the shirt. It's not pre-stretched. It's not, warped out away. It's just nice and smooth. Now that stabilizer is not going to go anywhere, so it makes it easier to hoop. And it also has the benefit of having secured that stabilizer or the material so it can't move around. So there's a whole video that we've done on that, actually showing it being done and how to hoop it and whatnot. So there's a lot of good information there, but it really, I found, as long as I'm not pre-stretching it and I have good stabilization and I secure the fabric to the underlay by using that 505, I rarely see movement and puckering on the performance wear. Okay. Can I have DesignShop on 2 computers is asked. So yes, kind of. Yes, you can. However, you can only have it active on per license that you own. So let's say you have one license, one serial number. You can have it installed on 2 computers, but you would have to deactivate it on one, activate it on the other. So it's not like you can have them both active on both computers and have 2 people working on it. In order to do that, you'd need to buy 2 licenses for it. But here, I'll show you, switch back over to this one. Up here, if I go Tools, Deactivate Product, when I do that, it will deactivate it so that now I can go to my other computer and activate it. All right. I do know I've talked to several folks who go back and forth between a shop and home, and they have it installed on both computers, but they just make a point of deactivating it at the end of the day, activating it at home, deactivating at home, activating at work. That you just have to make sure you get into a rhythm of always deactivating when you use it. Otherwise, you're stuck with it active in one location and not the other. All right. Let's see. Good morning. All right, so I think that's all the ones that have been typed in. So let me jump back here. So we talked about pucker. The other day I showed how to merge 2 shapes. Is that available in DesignShop? Yes, if it's grayed out, you need the higher levels of DesignShop. So what I have here is Pro Plus, so I have all the features available. So if you're not seeing that, you'd want to consider upgrading. Let's see. Wondering if I'm doing something incorrectly. No, it really just depends on what version you have. Now, DesignShop, I'm not talking about the version here with numbers. I'm talking about DesignShop Lite, DS, DS Pro, DS Pro Plus, the vector options and things like that. They're each different levels, and with each level comes additional features. Okay, so if it's not possible, would I be able to import a vector shape and turn it into a fill with a satin border and adjust it to sew out well? Yeah, you can do that too. So let's do that. So I'm just pretend I imported this instead of doing what I'm doing. All right, I'm just drawing 2 shapes. So let's say you did this in Illustrator. You combined it. All right, and I'm going to center it. So let's say for some reason this is your logo. I just jumped on and heard the deactivation of DS. Okay, so right here, let's say we've got a shape and we want to add fill to it. Well, the only difference between your vector fill and your regular fill is a stitch direction. So there's a little more, but all you would need to do with the vector is select the vector, because you have to select it first, whatever you want to modify. And then right here, you'll see Insert Stitch Direction. Okay, this group of 4 is pretty much your editing commands of sorts. So that bottom right one is Insert Stitch Direction. If I left click and drag, that will add a stitch direction for me, and you'll see now I have a fill. All right, so I can do it. Now, what if I don't like that angle? Well, what do? I need to edit it. So you select the shape first. You can edit it a few different ways. I can just double click or right click and go to Properties. It takes you to the same screen. All right, now from here, if I want to change the stitch angle, first you got to turn off auto. If auto's on, you're not going to be able to modify anything without. But here you can see the stitch angle. So let's say you really wanted that to be 60. Well, I can change it to 60 and hit apply. And notice it changes the stitch angle. On top of that, if I wanted to add a pattern to it, so let's say bricks, I like that one. Okay, so I can add a pattern to it. Well, these patterns always look better as satins. So now that I have the pattern on there, I can apply a satin. So you can see you can adjust it that way. The other way you can adjust your stitch angle is rather than dealing with it here, so let me just go back to a basic fill so I'm not overly complicating it for everyone. All right, so I got a basic fill here. A different way we can do it is select the shape. Once the shape is selected, I can then click on the Insert Stitch Direction button, and you'll see that dotted line, which was indicating what direction my stitches were going, is now solid with black handles on each side. So I can select and drag that wherever I want, and it will automatically recalculate all the stitches. Now, the only other thing you need to pay attention to, or that's important to look at, is where your starts and stops are. Okay, when you just do what we started with, which is a vector and add a stitch direction. It's going to put the starts and stops wherever it feels like. All right. So to fix those, you would again select your shape, and you can either select them and move them around to wherever you want them to go, or if you don't feel like clicking on them, you just want to say start here, end here. All right. Well, how do we do that? Select the shape. I click on Insert Entry Exit Points. So if I click that, click 1 is the start point, click 2 is the stop point. So if I just select that, you can see those 2 clicks I just did are where my starts and stops went. All right. Now the other half of the question was, how do I add a border to it? Well, a few ways. You can take the same vector that we started with, and right down here you'll see there's change element from one type to another. Okay. If I click on that one, you'll see it gives me options. All right. So I can say single line center. A single line center is a constant width column. All right. And I can say add. And now it adds a border to that. So now I can modify that border to be whatever I want with it. So make it thicker. I can fix the underlay, add the tie-ins and tie-outs and do all that standard stuff. Now keep in mind with your fill, as it's sewing, in the direction it's sewing, these edges are going to try to move in, right? So if you don't have appropriate underlay, that gets exacerbated. So you do want to make sure that you're thinking about things like that, what material you're going to go on, what stabilizer, how your underlay is, and also make sure you use some full compensation to account for things moving around. All right, so that's making a shape and adding a border. So that was the other half of this one. How to clean up a design you purchased that has a ton of jump stitches. Yeah, we can do that. I'll go open a design in just a second. Let's quick scan the rest of this. I'll do that one in there too. Well, this one, how can I make a file so from the center out, like for a hat? You have to digitize for it, unfortunately. With lettering, it's simple. For everything else, you have to actually go through the work and plan it out, thinking about it, where you're going to start, where you're going to stop, what order you're going to sew the design in, so that it's going from bottom to top. And all of that stuff. So there's no simple click on a button for big designs. However, for text it's simple. All right, so for shape, how would you make it so center out? You play with your starts and stops and see what you can get, or you break it up into several parts, Travis. So if I were going to do this one to make it so center out, well, one, it's sewing in this direction. So if I start it in the middle and redraw, what you'll see is it starts in the center and starts sewing out. So you play with your starts and stops to move around until you get them to do what you want. Downside to this is what you'll see is it gets your underlay, but now when it's coming back, you're going to get some not so desirable effects of it sewing back towards the center rather than from the center out when it comes to meet back because of where I put the stop. So you can always break it into 2 segments where you actually split the shape in half, and then again think about your starts and stops, and then you'd have to do some travel stitches to get around to your next spot. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. If not, we can see about getting some examples made. Actually, I think there are some examples in the pre-done shapes here, now that I think about it. Under custom shapes, which custom designs? Not that one. Closed shapes. Yeah, I think these are actually set up that way. You can see where they're done, where they've got the travel stitches, they break the shapes into different pieces and then sew it. So you can see a technique on how shapes are done center out. Okay. Yeah, the rectangle is as well. All right. So how to clean up jump stitches. So there's a few ways you can play around to see what you can get. So let me go open up this. Where did I put it? I got one. Sorry, I closed it. All right. Let's see if it's going to oh, that's nice. All right, this one doesn't have the most jump stitches in it, but there's a few. So there's a few ways. You can always mess with the filter. and mess with these accumulate jump stitches. So you can always do that, and this, by playing with these, it will get rid of some of them for you. You'd have to open the file, save it, and when you open it again, they tend to go away. So there, you always have that to play with. So let's see, if I accumulate jump stitches, filter and adjust now. All right, so that didn't get those because these are actually keyed in there. So I'm sure there's a different way, but this will do it. So if you find these, so you can see there's a jump from there to there. Okay, it's long enough you can trim it out, but I don't know, that's not what I consider fun. All right, so that's color 22. So I like turning off all the other colors when I'm messing with things like this, just to make it easier to look at, and finding that element. Once you have it, up here I can turn on expanded stitches. I usually just click on the area where I want it, or I want to trim out, and then right here go to split element, because now I can insert a trim, and all we have to do at this point is delete that one stitch that I put there. So if I select on it and hit delete, that one goes away. Okay, so I've now basically put a trim manually in there. Okay, so same with this one over here. I can come over, add a stitch, right here, split element at selected points. Right up here, there's the insert trim. So that got rid of that. So now I just have to select the point that I added and hit the delete key. Okay, so that's not exactly the fastest way, but it is effective. All right, so again, do that one more time down here with this one. I turn on, toggle to expanded points. Oops. There we go. Select the point, split element, add a trim. There, that one actually, since there was a point already, it deleted it. Okay. Yes, Nate makes a good point. If you're going to do what I just did, make sure the design is set up like that, that there's actual tie-in and tie-off. What I've generally for this particular company that I bought this from is very good about putting knots. So I don't even think about twice with that because they always have a tie-in and tie-off. But it is a very good thing to check. Make sure you have your tie-ins and tie-outs on the previous elements. Otherwise, you'll end up with just threads hanging out in the back and no knots. In that case, you need to go add the manual stitches to add a tie-off stitch for you. Okay. So it really depends on where you're buying it from and whether they know what they're doing, whether it's safe to do that. Those colors are awful on that bird. But anyway, okay. Let's see. What else do we have? All right, so that's show us how to clean up the jump stitches. All right, so that's one way. The best settings for puff caps. There are several videos and things that have been done on puff. Really, it's if you're using MOS, I don't believe Bravo OS has it. There's a button, so when you on OS, when you select the color, you can click on the puff button, and that will turn it to where you can. The machine will auto adjust the active feed up for you. If you're working on Bravo OS or the others, you have to manually change your settings, and I'd suggest reviewing those. If you've looked at those and still are having questions, let's talk again, because puff's a lot of fun. Can do some really neat stuff with it. How do I change the order of stitching? Okay, so we use our project view for that. We did that one. Okay, so let's go look at how do we change the order of stitching. Well, it's probably not the best idea to play with. No, I'm going to go grab another file. Yeah, there you go. So the link for the puff resources has been added into the comment chain, so be sure to check those out. So I'm going to go open up One Day just because. All right, so if I want to change the order of stitching, so currently what does it do? Well, it's going to sew the pairs. It's going to sew that pair for, it's going to sew basically a manual underlay, if you will, just a normal stitch, a run stitch. Then comes and does a fill, walks down to the next pair. So this is the order it's sewing in. And that is over here in our project view. So when we want to rearrange things, what we would do is select whatever we want to move and drag it around. All right. So if for whatever reason I wanted the leaves to sew first, I could select the leaves, left click and drag, and you see that black line that appears? That's where it's going to put it. Now, when you rearrange things, make sure that it's still going to work with the design. And what I mean by that, you know, on my screen it looks okay, but when I turn it into 3D, notice that's not how this design was intended to be sewn, because you see these running stitches right here? Now they're on top of the leaves because they were supposed to sew first because they were going to get covered up later. So as you're rearranging things, make sure that it still works with the order. You know, that leaf under this pear doesn't work. It's supposed to be on top of it. So that's the only caution I'd say as you rearrange things. Just make sure it's designed to work that way. Or if you still want it that way, we'd have to go to do some editing to clean this up so it actually will still look nice. Now, what if you want to remove individual things around? So rather than just the color, by left clicking and dragging, that moves the entire color. What if, let's say, I didn't want all those pears to be this color. I wanted, I don't know, that one to be red. I'm just making up stuff, sorry. And this one to be red too. All right, so let's say you wanted that. All right, so now you notice I've got 7 color changes. All right, so I've got going from the green pear to the red pear to the green pear to the red pear. Well, in this case, we can move those around by saying, all right, well, instead of sewing green, red, let's move the greens together. Left click and drag. Now the reds are together. And then I can merge the colors. Okay. So I can merge my colors that way. So now I am back down to just sewing that green color once, then the red color. All right, so you've got that. What other questions did we have? So that's changing the order of stitching. So changing the order is all relative to rearranging your tree. Some people think of these as like layers. It's going to sew this, then that. So as you drag them around, it's the order that you're going to be sewing in. Okay. What else do we have? Can you lock files so there won't be an accident on delete? I don't quite know. I know, well, all right. Over here, I can lock colors. All right, so let's say I want to lock this design. All right, I can't make any changes to that now because I turned on that little lock. All right, so I can't accidentally delete these sorts of things, but that's within the file. If you're talking about how to stop files from being deleted from Windows, that's a Windows thing, and I'm not the best with that. I know there's a way because my husband's done it on my computer, but yeah, sorry. But this locks it within DesignShop itself. So within this file, now, you know, see, I can't even select it anymore because it's locked. All right, I wonder, did that help at all? I don't know. I have a customer wanting a larger design on a burlap runner. Are there any tricks to design alignment for multiple hoopings? Yeah, whatever you can imagine. Nate did a really good video. There's a, I don't remember. I linked it here if it was Sue's or Nate's, but there's several videos that have been done over the past year. One's on a runner. Around Christmas time, Nate did a continuous hooping on some ribbon where it was a holly leaf that got repeated. That one's also really good. It shows different techniques. It really is down to what you want. I know there's some pretty popular Bernina design. It's not Bernina. It's a designer that works with Bernina. Anyway, that does very large quilts. And on those, there's designed in features to be used for the next hooping. Well, in those cases, it's the stitches themselves are already built in there, so you use laser alignment and move along. So it really comes down to the planning out and thinking through the work of where are you going to add registration marks. Oh, yeah, that's a good point, Nate. Okay, sorry, I'm just reading questions, see if there's anything else. So there's a lot. I do multiple hoopings all the time. So how I always do them is something of this effect. I'll take whatever design I have, and let's say I've got another element that's going to be sewn over here. Well, in one file, I usually take the full design and cram it into one file, just so I can plan out where my registration, where the center of each design, what's going to go in file 1, file 2, file 3. That's just my personal preference. There really is no need to do that. It just helps me think through everything by having it in one file. And then from there, I save it off into the 3 or 4, however many files it's going to be. And that way I can plan that, hey, if I put an X, if this pair is sewing on the next design, well, I can plan one of my registration points under here because it's going to get sewn over and I don't have to worry about picking stitches out, which isn't hard. I just don't like doing it. So I try to always put my registration lines under things that are going to get sewn over later so I don't have to worry about it. So check out those videos. That doing big designs and things like that is a whole topic in itself for multiple hoopings. And I know, check out the videos we have, and we'll get with the team and see if we can do another one in the future, because it's really fun. Like I said, I do really long things. I know some other ladies who are doing these really big quilts where all the panels are embroidered and they all tie together. It's like a big forest scene. It's really cool, and it's all done by using alignment and registration and breaking it up through multiple hoopings. All right, I think those were all the questions I had ahead of time, if I could talk here. And I don't see any new questions typed in. So, any other questions before I head out for the afternoon? Oh, on the locking files, looks like you can make them read only through Windows, and to do that, I assume you would right click, go to Properties, and make it read only right there, and that will make it so you can't overwrite the file by accident. So there's always that. All right. Well, everyone have a good weekend. Think of your questions, type them in. If we try to do these on a weekly basis, so bring your questions and we'll try to go through them. If you have them, you can always send them to applications@melco.com and they can forward them on to whoever's going to be doing it for the week. All right. Well, you guys have a great afternoon, and I will talk to you next time.